Welcome to the Valley Hoops Insider Podcast. Today, Voices of the Valley edition. We are privileged to have the play-by-play voice of the women's basketball team for the Drake University Bulldogs. Hunter Phillips is with us today. And Hunter, I appreciate you joining us. Before we talk hoops and all of that, tell us about you. How long have you been doing, do they call them Lady Bulldogs at Drake, or are they just Bulldogs?
Just Bulldogs.
All right.
Bulldogs,
So how long you been hanging with the Bulldogs? Tell us about you.
Well, first of all, Harry, I just got to say that as someone who has been in the league this is my 8th season with our women's basketball program at Drake. Time flies when you're having a lot of fun. Student at Drake, so graduated from Drake. Just someone who's a big fan of Valley Hoops. It's a pleasure to be on here with you. You're the go-to when it comes to everything Valley Hoops, and so appreciate your coverage. And so for me, I'm a Des Moines kid, born and raised, grew up in West Des Moines, went to Valley High School. I have a grandmother that got her master's degree at Drake. And so I kind of grew up in a Bulldog household, despite there being a lot of Iowa State, Iowa, some UNI fans here in Des Moines. I was lucky enough to be, raised a Bulldog. And so for me, I knew kind of early on that I wasn't going to be able to cut it as an athlete professionally. Baseball was my sport growing up. So I'm like, okay, what's the next best thing? And that's to be a broadcaster, working in sports in some capacity. So I enjoyed, specifically watching the likes of Al Michaels and John Madden calling Monday night, Sunday night football. Was just glued to the TV. We always had sports on growing up, on TV and also on the radio. And here in Iowa, we have so many great broadcasters covering all of our college programs, which I know we'll get into here in a little bit. But for me, just to be a small part of that, it really does mean a lot. And so I got into Drake, and they're like, hey, you want to come in as a broadcaster? We have the opportunities for you. And so sophomore in college, here I am in the Knapp Center, courtside. It's still, it's surreal just thinking about it. When I put the headset on for the first time calling high school football, that's where it started for me. I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so fortunately, throughout my time as a student at Drake, got to know people in the athletic department. This was before the Valley on ESPN. So we called Drake softball games on the radio station. And so just being able to, I guess, get to know people in the athletic department, it meant a lot. And so when I graduated, unbeknownst to me, the previous voice of our women's basketball program, Rick Silvestrini, was taking on a different role with, I believe, Learfield IMG College at the time. So they called me up and they're like, are you interested? Do you want to be the full-time play-by-play person for Drake women's basketball? I'm like, where do I sign the dotted line? Like, let's get this thing started. And so the rest has been history. So yeah, 8th season with our women's basketball program. I've obviously been a part of a lot of just exciting moments, not only in the Valley NCAA tournaments. It's just been an incredible ride. And I consider myself just the luckiest guy on earth to be able to call games for my alma mater.
That's spectacular. I love those stories. I love, the stories of how I went from here to here and there to there. And I love when the doors fling wide and open. And I do love when the Valley made that shift, the Valley on ESPN, and all of a sudden the schools are needing to televise everything that's going on pretty much. It opened the door for a lot of people, but also it just opened the door for people to start to see, wow, Drake's got great athletics, or fill in the blank university, the Missouri Valley School. They've got a great swim team or a great soccer team. And I know you do men's and women's soccer. And so it's just spectacular what the league has done. I'm just such a big fan of the league office as well as the teams and the programs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's great for the fans, and it's great for just everyone involved, the student athletes, and just to have that kind of exposure where, talking about men's and women's soccer, Zoe Mahoney had a throw-in goal last year that made the number one play on Sports Center. I don't think that you're ever going to see a goal like that ever again. If the goalkeeper for UNI hadn't touched it prior to reaching the end line, then it would have just been a regular goal kick. And so it's plays like that where all of a sudden here she is having T-shirts made Mahoney Magic. I was the one that said that on ESPN, the Valley on ESPN. So I hope to get a little credit for that. But no, it's great. It's great for everyone involved, especially for family members who are not from the Des Moines area. That way they can just easily watch, their son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson, you name it, And it's just been a big plus ever since that came to the Missouri Valley Conference. What about less than just about 10 years ago? But it's been a great asset for the Valley for sure.
Be Blue podcast. Tell us about that.
Oh man. So our each team, I guess, around the valley has its own saying. Like with Michael Admire and our men's basketball team at Drake, it's all in, and so that's the All In podcast. And at Drake, it's the Be Blue podcast. And so it really just started off where I think it really began where I wanted to introduce our fans to incoming freshmen,
Mm.
especially with the group that are now juniors. We called them the Fab Five at the time: Katie Dinnebeer, Ashley Imes, Anna Miller, as well as Hannah Nilgis, just to name a few. Where maybe our fans didn't get a chance to watch them in high school, and it's a way for them to be able to express their excitement, and it's also a way for me to be able to, I guess, make my introduction to them because I'm going to see them at practices and of course every step of the way. But it really just started as a way for our fans to get to meet freshmen, and then it just went on to checking in with Coach Jenny Baranchik at the time, and now with Allison about how the team's doing during the off season, just to keep our fans locked into the program because we have such a loyal fan base here at Drake, and it just makes it so easy. Our student athletes do such a great job, not only on the court, but off the court. They're just fantastic. They have so many great stories. And so I know here recently, Megan Meyer, made her return after what it appeared to be she was going to use the rest of her, or not use the rest of her eligibility. Her fiance, Jack Campbell, linebacker for the Detroit Lions. And just to be able to hear her story on why she wanted to return, getting a phone call from Coach Pullman that Sunday in Santa Clara before she's getting ready to cheer on Jack, and just to hear how she decided that she wanted to finish things out on her terms after unfortunately suffering a torn ACL the year prior, had never gone through any kind of serious injury like that. So having stories like that. And then also just trying to create new ways to be able to engage with our fans. We just started an Off the Leash podcast. Hannah Nill just does a great job of hosting it. She asks the hard hitting questions for some of her fellow teammates, where you kind of get some of the behind the scenes accesses into like the day to day what's a part of being a student athlete at Drake, and you really gain a whole new appreciation for it. So it really just turned into stuff like that where we were finding, especially in the wake of COVID, we couldn't have our coaches shows anymore live on location. And so how could we still be able to interact with our fans, and so they could get to know what's going on in the program. And so that's how the Be Blue podcast started. And it's really taken off since. And a lot of people have really enjoyed it.
Listen, I was doing a game this weekend. I was doing a women's game at Evansville, and we were all talking like it's not really fair, is it, for Drake to be this good and then to drag Megan Meyer back on the team? We'll talk about that in just a minute. So eighth year there, give us like one, like, man, this is like major highlight in my broadcasting career, maybe beyond that soccer throwing goal.
Oh man, I had a feeling that this question was going to pop up, and it's really hard to pinpoint one, but I'll go ahead and give you one because it was my very first season. So this was the senior year of Lizzie Wendell, one of the all-time greats in Drake history, I believe, third all-time in career scoring behind Lori Bauman and Wanda Ford. Just a couple of good players in the history of the Valley. Caitlin Ingle, the Valley's all-time leader in career assists, and of course Courtney Rush, who is still on staff with us. This was a team that was knocking on the door of making the NCAA tournament, but UNI was getting in the way the last couple of years, and so sure enough, we went undefeated, I believe, during that regular season, won the regular season crown, but trying to get over that hurdle there in Moline. And so this was my very first year.
Beautiful.
I followed the team. Like as a student, I would go to hoops in the Heartland, and even before that, down in St. Charles when they had the tournament down there.
Hmm.
So that goes back to some of the early Jenny days. But this was going to be the team that's really going to start what we now know of, as Drake being really successful on the women's side today. And so it took a last second shot from Caitlin Ingle out of a timeout, elbow jumper. We just actually had Caitlin and Lizzie, who's living over in England, on as a reunion podcast, which was great. And they still have goosebumps about it even to this day, where Caitlin makes the shot to send it into overtime. and Drake was able to outlast UNI to win the MVC tournament title, make it to the NCAA tournament. So that all happened in my very first season. It's still a whirlwind. It happened way too quickly. Of course, they went down to Kansas State to play in the first round of there in the big dance. But to me, that just was like what really got the gears rolling in terms of the trajectory of this program, and just to everyone dreams about calling it buzzer beater, right? And
Yeah.
so there have been buzzer beaters on the good end and on the bad end. You're
Of
going to get
course.
that. That's what it's all about. But for that all to just magically, take place the way that it did there in Moline, my very first season full time. I mean, you couldn't have scripted it any better from like my perspective, but also just from everyone that supports this program, and just to play a role in it, to tell that story. To me, that's always one of the biggest highlights that I go to right away.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything better than the job that you have to be very connected to a team and kind of live and die with them. I mean, you're not a part of making a jumper or anything like that, but you're living and dying with them. I think it's so special. And then, particularly when they do something maybe a little unprecedented and you are a little bit a part of it, I think it's just amazing stuff. 9-1 are the Bulldogs in the league, and 16-5, and tied with Belmont. They have a game at Belmont a little bit later in the season. Uh, the Bulldogs are awfully talented and awfully good. You got four young ladies scoring in double figures. Obviously, Katie Dinnebeer is off the charts, outstanding, leading the league in scoring, steals, assists. When you can step back, though, what are the maybe common ingredients that make this team so strong?
I think it really all stems from just the overall identity of being an unselfish basketball team. And you'll hear players like Katie and Anna will try to ask them in the post game about, and we bring up all these fantastic numbers that they're putting up, and they'll just say thanks, they'll brush it off, and they'll say, but I'm surrounded by teammates that
Mm,
put me in this position, or they're the ones that are making the shots, that's why I'm credited with the assists. So I think it all stems from head coach Allison Pullman from the top down. This is just a first class program that just values togetherness,
mm,
values chemistry, and it shows on the court and how they're able to just flawlessly move the basketball, high basketball IQ. This is just a team that, and I think that really under Allison, now that she's taken over the reins. Allison, as we all know, Allison Starr at UNI was a fantastic, not only offensive player, but defensive player. And she's brought a little bit of that edge to this team, that
mm.
they're much better rebounding wise. I think they lead the league in defensive rebounding. They were one of the nation's best in defensive rebounding a year ago. And they bring some different looks defensively, not only just a matchup zone, but they'll mix in man to man. And I think that's what's made them very versatile. And so when you have a point guard like Katie Dinnebeer, and you just look at the point guards of the past, not only Caitlin Ingle, but Maddie Monahan, now Maddie Peterson, and leading into Katie Dinnebeer, Sammy Backrope. I'd be remiss not to miss her name out. There's just been a strong lineage of the success through this team goes through a point guard, and there's
Mm.
really no one tougher than Katie. And there are a lot of great point guards in the Valley. Tootie Jones, that was one of the best matchups to watch early on. Tootie Jones was Defensive Player of the Year in the Ohio Valley Conference before, unfortunately getting hurt before the Valley season last year. Maya Wong's great at Illinois State. Maya McDermott, her and Katie have high school day battles, but when they were at Milwaukee and Johnston, and the two have so much respect for one another. But then when you can throw in players like a Graceberg, who is the definition of versatility on both ends of the floor, and the experience she brings, Anna Miller as well. Courtney Becker has been just a rebounding machine. Taylor McCauley has really come in to be a good, not only defensive player, but also when needed, she's going to be able to knock down those shots. And I think another thing too, speaking of Megan Meyer, Drake has always prided itself on being a deep team and having a bench that can come in and produce at a moment's notice, and being able to rely on even younger players as well. And so there are a lot of ingredients that have made for this team to be one of the best in the Valley. But I think it just all stems from just being unselfish and wanting the best for one another, team chemistry. and just having that be blue mentality. And it really has worked out for this program, especially here as we're at the midway point of the Valley season.
Talk about Coach Pullman a little bit. I've talked to her once or twice. Don't know her very well. Tell us what kind of makes her tick.
Boy, she just loves the game of basketball. She is someone that, it's whenever we play at UNI, it's always just incredible to hear her talk about just the connections that she has with that program. She grew up less than 30 miles away from Cedar Falls and obviously was a really good player there, was an assistant coach. In fact, Tanya Warren was an assistant coach while Allison was a player. And so
Hmm.
just going back to that series, ever since 1996, either as a player and or as a coach, Tanya Warren and Allison Pullman have been a part of that Drake UNI series. And so
Wow.
Allison is someone that she gets after it. I mean, I'll never forget my very first years attending practices. She is out there and she is just she is just someone that from start to finish is really pushing the players to limits that maybe they didn't know they had. And
Hmm.
so they really respect that out of her because she is someone that, her playing days back it up. I mean, she finished her career at UNI second in program history in scoring and was one of the Valley's leaders in steals and rebounding. I mean, Allison did it all. And I think that the players really embody just that overall toughness from her. But there's also something about being loose as well and having fun. I mean, Allison always emphasizes, we want to play, we want to have a toughness and edge, no doubt about it, when you cross those lines. But you know what? Play with your smile, play with a smile on your face. Enjoy being out there together as a team. And when you can combine those two things, that's when you see the high flying offense and you see players diving for loose balls and just that effort that I think our fans have really come to appreciate. And again, that really all stems from Allison as a player and just what she's been able to do as a coach. And so I know that our players just love Coach Allison and the rest of our staff because they just totally embody what they expect for them on the court, and it's really been special to see her, take over from Coach Baranchek to now just already I think approaching 60 wins and now 2.5 years of being a head coach. She's just done an amazing job, and she's been really really fun to work with.
Bulldogs are 9-1, 16-5. I looked over the schedule. Still have a game. I think they host Illinois State, host Missouri State, and have to go to Belmont, which are all teams that they're fighting for those top four spots in the Valley, and obviously right now tied with Belmont for the top spot in the league. Uh, and I'm not saying the rest of the games don't matter, but those are the three big head-to-head matchups. The only loss to Illinois State. Tell us about that game.
Well, Illinois State has always been a tough matchup ever since Coach Kristen Gillespie arrived there in Normal. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe it's been since 2020 since Drake had won at Redbird Arena, now
Hmm.
Sefco Arena. They're just really, really good at home. They're a good team no matter where they play.
Yep.
But they kind of like Allison, our coach at Drake. They just they play so hard for Coach Gillespie. And so, unfortunately, it was a day where we just really couldn't buy a three. I think we ended up making 4 of 18, 4 of 19. Very uncharacteristic for us. But historically, looking at the last 3 to 4 matchups there in Normal, we just haven't shot well. And so, just when we were able to kind of build some momentum a little bit, then Illinois State on their home court, they would be able to respond with a three or two. And so it was a game where Deanna Wilson, I think, had a really good third quarter.
She ain't bad.
She is right up there with Katie in terms of player of the year consideration.
Yeah.
She is just such a fun player to watch. Of course, you see the common theme for the top teams in the Valley. They have a really good point guard leading the way, and from their own backyard, Maya Wong has been great for them.
Hmm.
Kate Bowman has turned into just not only someone who will block a lot of shots during the game, but she can also make some threes. In fact, I think she made 3 threes in the fourth quarter of that game against us, and so. That was a big home series for them because not only did they defeat you and I, but also us. And so they're a team that come the rest of this month going into hoops in the Heartland. No matter who they face, no matter if it's a home court, away court, neutral court, they're going to be tough. And so I would just say that, on that particular night, it just wasn't the Bulldogs' day, especially not being able to shoot the three very well. But that's what, now it makes it really interesting because 2 weeks to the day, this Saturday will be our pink game. It'll be a rematch against Illinois State. And I know that both teams will be gearing up for that one.
Yeah, and then obviously Missouri State and Belmont on the 17th at Belmont. Going to be a great battle there too. I just think the stretch run for those 3 or 4 teams is going to be fun to watch. Drake leads the league in field goal percentage, free throw percentage, rebound margin, and then we talked about some of their outstanding individual players. Coach Pullman obviously can recruit as well, and she recruits players that will fit what she wants to do. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's really nobody that uh, fits that bill more than Katie Dinnebeer. Just a tough nosed guard, high basketball IQ. And as someone that, entering the season, Coach Pullman told us on the Be Blue podcast and other, interviews like, hey, we need Katie to become more of a scorer this year. Well, I think that
Mm,
she has certainly been able to answer that call. Of course, had 30 points for a career high there in that double overtime loss at Minnesota. I believe either has 9 or 10 games scoring 20 or more points. Of course, coming off of it, her first triple double, the second triple double in program history, and so she's done a great job. Allison has of recruiting and specifically identifying players that are going to be able to fit what they want to do stylistically, both offensively and defensively, and especially running the floor. I mean, you're going to have to be in real good shape with this offense. And so, Katie, certainly being from, the area, I think that's been another emphasis too, is that just being able to bring in some local kids that our fans have been able to watch over the years and now get to see them at the next level. I mean, before you know it, Brooklyn Daly, she's going to be a big part of what we're doing at Drake. And, even Ava Hawthorne is a sophomore from nearby Gilbert. I know I'm going over a lot of other players as well, but yeah, Allison, that's what really got her into, into the associate head coaching position at the time under Coach Baranchik was just her ability to be able to identify players
mm.
and I even go back to our conversation with Caitlin Ingle on the Be Blue podcast, and that she put up all these great numbers, but it was her relationship with Allison that really led her to wanting to play at Drake. And so whenever you're able to mix in just not only the X's and O's of things, but then to also be that person that you want to go play for when you're a prospective, student athlete in high school. I mean, it takes a rare combination to be able to do all of that. And Allison does a great job of not only finding those players, but also getting them to say yes and having them ultimately in their very first year be able to contribute in a big way for this program.
I'm a numbers guy, and so I wrote all this stuff down. Dinnebeer is shooting 537 from the floor. Berg 500. Anna Miller 510. Macaulay 488. That's like video game numbers. You can't shoot like that at the Division One level. Obviously, they run an offense that creates the right kind of shots they're looking for.
Yeah, it really does. And they're going to find one another, no matter if it's Katie, no matter if it's Taylor Macaulay, even Courtney Becker. I mean, just a few weeks ago had a career high 8 assists. I mean, when you look at the shooting numbers, you also have to look at like the assist, and a number of players are having single season career highs in that
Mm.
category just because of the high low action and being able to find everyone. And so I mean, you look at Katie's numbers, just absolutely brilliant from the field, especially from beyond the arc. I mean, again, the scoring numbers have gone up for her as well as Taylor Macaulay, really increased role starting at the Valley year last year, coming in for the then injured Megan Meyer. And then Courtney Becker's numbers have gone up. Grace Berg, I tweeted about it the other day, just an appreciation post for her in that she's shooting well from all areas of the floor and getting to the line really well. And so I think that's also been a thing too this year. I know the last few matchups, Coach Pullman would say that our free throw shooting is not at the level that it should be, but still, as a team, among the nation's best in terms of free throw percentage, being able to take advantage of your trips to the free throw line, especially a player like Katie, who has already made over 100 free throws this year and is right up there with Maya McDermott in terms of the nation's leaders in free throw percentage. But all in all, it's just incredible when you look from the top down, who all really contributes on this team. And as long as they find a way to win, as long as they find a way to score, which they score in bunches and bunches, that's what this program really cares about. And so that's why, you list off so many players. And like, it seems like after every game, Coach Pullman is always going through, she has the box score right in front of her. And she goes all the way down from the first player that she sees all the way to maybe if 9 players played in the game. It just seems like that's a nightly occurrence. And it all stems on just the overall system that this team runs. And again, it's just really special to watch night in and night out, just the unselfish play, because again, it's like video game numbers. You don't see them everywhere. And this team just makes it look routine.
I know she didn't play a ton the other day, but tell us about Megan Meyer, what you anticipate her role and what kind of impact she can have on this year's program.
Well, I tell you what, just the excitement level alone last Thursday when the news was released that she was coming back, there was just this heightened excitement that just erupted around the program, and I'll never forget the very first shot that she attempts coming back. It's on an out of bounds play right in front of the UNI bench, near corner, knocks down a three as though she not had never even left. And of course, our bench is to the right of us, and they were just so loud when she made that three. And so, just having someone who not only has the background, but someone who's been in that locker room, knows the majority of the players from the last 2 seasons. It's just a seamless fit. And going back to system, when I talked to Coach Pullman about it, she said that she fits our system so well, and that she was accustomed to being in the starting lineup. Now she's going to be one of those players that comes off the bench, and I think that we're going to see her role increase, no doubt about it, as the speed of the game catches up to her. She told us that Megan did on the Be Blue podcast that there are no limitations. She's completely healthy, but you still want to ease her into it. But no doubt, when you bring back a player that 2 years ago was the newcomer of the year in the league, it's certainly a huge boost, and it's going to cause defenses to be a little bit cautious, because you can't leave number 11 open, because prior to getting hurt, she made 7 threes in one of our tournament games down in Miami. She's a player that can light it up, and once she sees that first bucket go in, you better be able to put eyes on her. But then it's like, okay, if we're going to focus on Megan, then we have to focus on Katie. We're going to have to focus on Anna Miller, Grace Berg. And so I see her role increasing. Didn't play that many minutes at UNI. I think there were a lot of people that were wondering if she was even going to play, but she was ready to go. And, the pink shoes and all, she was waiting to be able to put those sneakers on to make her return. That was another part of the podcast that just, a great overall story. But no, Megan Meyer is someone that, with her experience, basketball IQ, and just her hunger and desire, she expressed that a lot. And just her love for this program makes it one where you're like, yeah, it's going to be fun to see what she can do here for the final stretch of this season.
You didn't know that you were rooting against the Lions in the playoffs. You didn't know that, but you were, because it changed your basketball team. The Bulldogs, we mentioned the record is outstanding. Beat Iowa State, beat St. Louis, overtime loss to Minnesota. Not a bad loss, really, to Iowa. Lost to Creighton. They've played some really outstanding teams and have held up quite well. Talk about their non-conference resume.
Yeah, even going back to Coach Baranchik, this is a team that does not shy away from anyone. I'll never forget when we traveled up to Vancouver to play 3 games in 3 days. We play Rutgers, who was then coached by C. Vivian Stringer, overcame a 14-point halftime deficit to win, remain undefeated on the season. Very next day, you have to play the defending national champions, number 1 team in the country, Notre Dame, whose starting 5, I believe, all got drafted into the WNBA. And that was your first loss of the year, was pretty competitive against the Fighting Irish. And then the next day you play the national champion from 2 years ago in South Carolina, Dawn Staley. a team that had a lot of talent, and they were number 12 in the country at the time. And in overtime, the Bulldogs were able to get one of their highest ranked wins in program history. So that just, is just a little sample of what the non-conference really means in terms of building that overall resume and ultimately preparing yourselves for Valley play. And specifically with our non-conference, I mean, St. Thomas is a team that I think many should really keep an eye on because they have a lot of talent in the Twin Cities, and they're going to be really, really good. Still very new in the Division One ranks. Obviously, St. Louis, they're a team that made it to the NCAA tournament a year ago. Really surprised a lot of people there in the A10. And then Iowa State, a young team, but a team that is built for the future. They've been kind of flirting with the top 25 here and there. That's a huge win, especially whenever you're able to face them there at the Knapp Center. Unfortunately, when we played at Iowa, they were number 2 at the time. They were coming off their first loss just a few days prior against Kansas State, so you knew that we were going to get their best shot no matter what. But especially coming off of a loss and then playing number 20 Creighton as well, still in the top 25. I love that we still continue that series because I feel like in ways we're very similar in terms of the players that we recruit, but still to be able to keep that series alive, it's really beneficial for both teams. And then I even look at our Thanksgiving tournament, which we hosted here, playing 3 teams that provided a lot of different things. Richmond, a very good team. That was really, I think that was our lone loss in that tournament, but they really exposed us in ways that, hey, you want to get that in your non-conference while also facing teams like Louisiana Tech and Maine, where you're facing different styles of athletes and what teams are going to present to you both offensively and defensively. And then of course playing at Minnesota, that was big for a lot of our Minnesotans that are on the team, and also players from Wisconsin to be a part of that and to take Minnesota to double overtime in their place was certainly a big accomplishment. So all in all, it's about facing as many quality teams as you can. Luckily, we have a lot of the big 4 teams here in the state of Iowa. We still keep those series going on the women's side, and it's great from a fan perspective, but also from the team's perspectives. But then also mixing in other teams that maybe you wouldn't face, on a yearly basis in your non-conference. Ultimately, it's about getting yourselves ready for Valley play because you never know what's going to be heading your way. You're going to be put into different positions, and so that's what it's really all about. And that's why Coach Pullman and her staff, I mean, they're always working up ways to make sure that their Bulldogs are ready once MVC play arrives.
They're going to be fun to watch, and they have a chance to really do something special the rest of this season at Hoops in the Heartland, potentially in the NCAA tournament. I think they're a team built to do some damage. Do you agree?
I agree. And this is a team that was a couple layups away from defeating Louisville last year in the NCAA tournament there in Austin. And I understand that we lost, Maggie Bear to graduation, who had a phenomenal MVC tournament. I believe was the MVC tournament MVP. Also lost to Sarah Beth Gildner, one of our starting guards who can knock down threes. But this is a team that had that taste. And, going into this season, they being able to relive what they did in Moline last year as a 4 seed and having to beat the 3, 2, and 1s on the way to cutting down the nets. I mean, there's no harder path to be able to get to the NCAA tournament than that. And so now that they've tasted that, now it's just a matter of again priming yourselves for March. And I think that this is a team that, if they're able to once again be able to hoist that trophy up at Hoops in the Heartland, and no matter where they get pegged in the NCAA tournament, they're a team that, because of their style, not many teams that are like a Louisville, or I saw in some of the latest bracketologies that they have them going up against like a Gonzaga or a Texas. It just their style of play just really gives some of those teams that are used to different styles a lot of fits because of just the high tempo style of play. So if it does reach that point, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this team from Des Moines can do some damage there in March Madness.
Before I let you go, the men are obviously playing at a high level as well. The men are 9-3 in the league and having a terrific year. Is there just a basketball buzz in Des Moines. I mean, like, I think that would be so fun to have both the men and the women playing at such a high level at the same time.
Well, basketball, it has such a rich history at Drake for both men's and women's basketball, and because of that, last year, both teams making the NCAA tournament together in the same year, that never happened in school history. And
Hmm.
so uh, that was like, okay, Des Moines' hometown team, like this is something that you really have to rally around. And
Which is
so
the greatest phrase going.
it
That's a
really is.
great phrase.
And that's to our athletic director Brian Harden and our marketing team and Michael Admire as well. Just how it really has become more than just a slogan here
Mm,
in Iowa's capital city. I mean, a lot of the players that represent both teams. I mean, you look at the men's side. Tucker DeVries is the top scorer for our men's team, and then Katie Dinnebeer on our women's side. They graduated at Waukee High School in the very same year. And so to see the local kids be able to make an imprint, and then when you're able to add in players like Darnell Brody is a fan favorite on our men's side here, as well as Connor Enright, and also the support from both teams. I mean, you'll see men's players at our women's games, and you'll
mm.
see, and it's the other way around. And so the Knapp Center, I mean, the hottest ticket in town. I know we have the Iowa Wolves, the G League team here in Des Moines, but the hottest ticket in town has really been at the Knapp Center because, I mean, you look at the win streak that Darren DeVries has at home, it's just incredible. And then Coach Pullman's been just equally as successful at the Knapp Center as well. So, again, never take stuff like this for granted because, again, you just, the Valley is so competitive and nothing's ever guaranteed. I mean, so that's why I think our fans are really just enjoying every single game day that they can to cheer on this team because it really is special what they're able to do, not only on the court, but then also off the court with the community. It really, really is something special. And for me personally, just to, again, be a small portion of that, I just consider myself, one of the luckiest guys in the world.
Spectacular. That's Hunter Phillips. He is the play-by-play broadcaster for the Drake Bulldogs on the women's side, and they are a special basketball team, and it's a great time to be a broadcaster or reporter in Des Moines, no doubt. Hunter, appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Harry, again, pleasure is mine, and is again someone that has just always been a huge fan of Valley basketball. You're the go-to. Love the work that you do, not only with the Valley Insider in terms of your written pieces, but also the voices of the Valley as well. Just do such a terrific job. So, thanks for having me on, and yeah, buckle up for a fun rest of February and into March. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Should be tons of fun. That's Hunter Phillips. Remember, folks, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.